Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Work with What You've Got podcast. My name is Devin, aka Dina Chaitanya. I'm a former monk, and now I am just trying to do my best to spread the teachings of consciousness and God consciousness with the world around me. So, yeah, thank you for joining us on this podcast today. This is episode number 18. With me today, I have a wonderful lady named Talesia Rubenheimer. She is an Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as a lifestyle, and she dabbles in lifestyle medicine, and she is a herbalist and a yoga teacher. So she has studied the physical energy and mental bodies in her. She included that in her studies, and that was done at the Integrative Health Sciences, which is in the University or at the University of Minnesota. And she also studied at polyvagal theory, which is in the UK. I'm not too sure if that's a university or it was an online uh, maybe you can tell us a bit about that. And yeah, so basically what Talesia does is she combines ancient wisdom with modern science to support the body's natural ability to heal and thrive. And as far as I know, Ayurveda also dabbles into connecting with the soul. So I'm sure it's integrating both the physical body and the soul mechanics together and helping her clients and herself to thrive in the most optimal way possible. So yeah, so welcome to Talesia. Thank you for joining me. If I missed anything, you're welcome to add it in. And yeah.
Thank you, Dina. I'm happy to be here. Excited to delve into some of these very rich and beautiful topics. And so, yes, as you mentioned, my name is Talesia Robenheimer, and I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I trained with Dr. David Frawley and Dr. Vasant Lad. I also further extended my studies into polyvagal theory, which is a subsection of obviously our autonomic nervous system, or the vagus nerve. And really what that is how that relates onto, integrative wellness as a whole. So yes, I also did integrative health studies at the University of Minnesota. And really what I see with all of these modalities is that we are mind, body, spirit. And that's really what the ancient science and medicine of Ayurveda has been saying for over 5,000 years plus. And really what science is saying today, which is so exciting for me, and what I do is that really science is reaffirming what these ancient rishis knew to be true so many, many thousands of years ago.
Give us
And I
some,
think
give
that's a
us
very
some.
exciting time.
Yeah. You said science is reaffirming. How so? How can you give me an example? How is science reaffirming these ancient
I think
this ancient wisdom?
I think, first of all, it almost feels that it's almost unnecessary for science to reaffirm, because it's been practiced for 5,000 years with great
Yeah.
success.
It's like its own
So that's
it's its
just to
own
say
science. Yeah.
it's its own science. But what I am seeing now is the data and the research, and actually the resources that's now being made available to mind body medicine, which is really, really, really exciting. We're able to really look at what Ayurveda in its essence is physics. It's the quantum field. And you look at the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, for example, and he's really, at the core of that is Ayurvedic medicine. It is saying that I'm a field of consciousness first and foremost. Then only I become manifest into the material body. But first and foremost, I'm a field of consciousness. And so therefore, do I access the root, which is the field of consciousness? So I think it's incredibly exciting when we're able to put on, really scan the brains of individuals in meditative states and see what's happening in our brains. And so this is what Ayurveda has been saying for thousands of years. So many of these things. Same thing, fasting. Ayurveda has been saying fasting, and now
Thousands of years.
there's lots of data to back it. In the ancient
Sure.
times, we only ate 2 meals a day, and when you were sick, you did not eat at all. That was the quickest way to overcome any kind of pathology. And same thing with, for example, circadian rhythms. Ayurveda is very, very clear with the dinacharya and how you use the clock of the day way to really, really harness the elements of nature when it comes to sleep, digestion, hormonal health, all of these things. And now we're understanding, okay, well, there's blue light and red light, and Ayurveda has been saying this for thousands of years. And actually, it's amazing to think, wow, they did this by going into deep states of meditation. And that's how the science, was documented by these ancient rishis. Rishis means seers in Sanskrit, and as I'm sure you would know.
The people
and
that are listening may not. So,
sure. And so they went into these deep states, and it was an applied science because they deconstructed it within themselves and then saw how it unfolded with the community and then how it worked time and time again. And so it was documented. And now we've got scientific data that says, yes, actually, your circadian clock is one of the most potent things you have when it comes to healing. Oh, yes, fasting is one of the most effective ways to heal.
People have cured cancer from fasting. I've seen many cases. Yeah.
And yes, wait, your mind is your most potent tool and ally. It's going to work with you or against you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, sure. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that the mind is either your best friend or your worst enemy. And we have to learn through practices, learn to cultivate it in a way that it becomes our friend and not our enemy. Because a lot of the time, not most of our problems, but there is a large percentage of our problems that start within our own mind, within our own, our own mind, I guess. And when we start to think a certain way, then we start to feel a certain way. And then when we start to feel a certain way, we start to act in a certain way. And then that creates our patterns in our lives for us, which is not always our fault. I'm sure Ayurveda, there's a lot to do with healing oneself from the root. So we all have issues that we chose. So for instance, like I decided at one point I'm going to start smoking cigarettes. That was my choice at a later stage in my life. But there's some things that we didn't choose, some traumas and stuff that are not particularly, that weren't our choice, but they're there anyway. And so I'm sure Ayurveda, maybe you could tell me a bit more about it, goes into healing those aspects of ourselves so that we can fully integrate into this present moment and into the reality that is right now. What are your thoughts on that? No.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that, we're now understanding that the chakra system is by scientific basis. And we know, and according to Ayurveda, that each of them have a correlation within a specific gland of our endocrine system. So according to Ayurveda, within the first 7 years of life, the root chakra is formed. Now, there's a couple of things to really note. That's in the first 7 years of life. And what's so amazing about that is it really, really correlates with what we know about the nervous system. That firstly, for the first 4 years of life, you really root in your primary carer's nervous system and up until the age of 7. That means that whatever your primary carer, so the person who's feeding you, nurturing you, spending the most time with you, whatever the state of their nervous system is, will be the imprint of what the child's nervous system is, right? And so what's really interesting about this is it introduces a few key concepts of Ayurvedic medicine. One, epigenetics, which is how much of the information we hold in our DNA has actually been passed down to our ancestry. And according to Ayurveda, we hold 7 generations worth of information in our DNA. Now, that's quite a lot. Okay?
Yeah, generational trauma is the word, huh? Well, not always trauma, but maybe like generational.
Not always trauma.
Yeah.
Information.
But that I'm sure fits in there. Yeah. Generational information. Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay, exactly. Interesting.
And within there is of course trauma. And so what you're talking about is very much what we call this imprint, or in yogic philosophy would be called the sanskara. So if I know that, okay, I'm a field of consciousness, and all disease, according to philosophy in Ayurvedic medicine and Vedic medicine called Pragyat Parat, all disease manifests when I forget I'm a field of consciousness and I start to identify with the material world. So I just want to give you an example of what this could look like. Now, so let's say I'm born in this in a family, and there's a couple of things that could happen, and maybe number one, my mom doesn't have a very rooted and grounded nervous system, and very anxious because she had to work and feed me, and that immediately impacts my nervous system. It immediately imprints into the nervous system. That imprint is what in Ayurvedic and yogic philosophy would be called a sanskara. That sanskara then develops what's called a vasana, which is a tendency. So the tendency in me as a child to be hypervigilant and
aware,
hypersensitive and aware, and maybe even hyper anxious, because I've learned that that's the imprint. Okay. So then in my first 7 years of life, I've formed this imprint. It comes from my primary carer, but the imprint forms the tendency, and now I've got this tendency that lasts me the rest of my life, and maybe even I have some other experiences in my life that make it a little bit worse.
That solidify it. Yeah. Sure.
Exactly. That keep on reinforming that same habit pattern.
Yeah.
And so the groove, that pathway becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, until one day I wake up and I say, or the body kicks me. The body gives me a big shouting,
yeah. A little gift.
We call it the pain teacher. The body gives me a big pain teacher. And then the pain teacher goes, no. The body says, I refuse to go on this way. And, I've seen this go two ways. Either we can take responsibility. Okay, what am I going to do about this? Or we end up, and I'm not saying that this isn't the only solution for some. Of course, there are multiple ways, or we end up medicating and numbing this pain teacher. And so, yes, of course, there are some instances where we need medication. And so I'm not saying I'm actually very pro medicine. And I believe that there's a real beautiful meeting point, and that's the future of medicine, where we can really both take responsibility and work with what allopathic medicine offers within technology and science and research, which is amazing. But it all comes to, am I willing to go to those first 7 years of life and maybe even beyond, and really look at what those epigenetics are, really look at what that language is, because so much of the epigenetic coding comes from the language that we use every single day in our own minds. And then also, am I really willing to take the responsibility, the incremental, small daily steps that is necessary to change what that is? And when you get to a point where you actually see this pain teacher as maybe the biggest gift of your life, which can be extremely hard in some cases, of course, there is a much, or in my experience, almost always a much deeper lesson there.
I agree.
It's quite a long answer.
No, it's good. And it's linking me into the first actual, now it's a second question, but it was the first question that I sent you. So you're talking a lot about people taking responsibility and being aware of the signs that our life and our body is offering us. And so many people say that they want to heal. I mean, I do Reiki as well. I'm a Reiki master, and I've worked with countless people. And I've had some instances where people come to me and they're like, yes, I want to heal. But they're not ready to take that accountability. So maybe there's a part of them that is very much like, something needs to change in my life. But there's another big part of them that's like, but I'm not ready to actually look into all the different aspects of why I'm the way I am right now. And so how do you, as someone who also is a healer and a practitioner, distinguish between someone who is genuinely ready to start healing and someone who is still maybe stuck in some maybe form of denial or whatever else keeps them from healing? So yeah, what is is it just your intuition, or is there like a process that you go through that you can determine this?
I love this question because Ayurveda is very practical science.
I'm so glad that, yes, great. Yes,
and I love that about Ayurveda. I love that it's so practical.
Sure.
And and this is such an easy one, because the first thing that I have to understand is, are you willing to cook?
Are you willing to cook? Okay.
Cook.
Sure.
Yes. Are you willing to cook your own food?
Because that's
If you're not willing
accountability,
to,
right? Yeah. In some sense,
I
yeah.
mean, listen,
It's caring for
if you're
yourself.
going
Yeah.
to eat 3 meals a day, first of all, if you're going to eat 3 meals a day, and all of them are going to be eaten outside, and all of those meals are going to be containing hydrogenated fats, or seed
Sugars
oils,
or
sugar, high processed food. What can I do for you? There's nothing I can do for you. There's
Sure.
nothing. I'm wasting your time. I don't want to waste your money. Let me give you a refund, and off you go. You must be able to take some responsibility. And we really, 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 really underestimate and undervalue the person who prepares the food. And a lot of the time, because that is, from the Ayurvedic perspective, it's the intention that's going into the food. It's the ingredients that are going in there. It's the quality of what's going in there. It's the prana or life force or chi that's going in there. It's how your rasayana, your soma, your cells, your taste buds are going to open up to that nourishment. So what has to go in there is all a variety of flavors. And it takes real conscious awareness and love and dedication and devotion, okay, to one's health to cook food. I can't tell you the amount of people these days who just don't want to do it. And it's something that we take for granted. But it's, like I say, Ayurveda is very practical. If you want to heal your body, if you're going through a painful experience or suffering physically, the first thing we have to do is take responsibility for our nutrition. It's number one. And then second would be is take responsibility for the toxic load in the body. Okay, so what am I ingesting that is pro-inflammatory? So in other words, causing inflammation in my body. Okay, so it's one thing to say, okay, I can cook 1 meal of oats every day, but actually to say, you know what, I'm willing to stop drinking alcohol, at least drink alcohol less, or at least give my body some time to have a break from it. Certainly stop smoking, and then stop overindulgence of high processed foods, which cause inflammation. And so this is just a very practical way. No, I can tell you this, Dina. If this person or whoever it is comes to see me and they just refuse to be able to cook or nourish themselves, then there's really not, it's only a one-way street. Let me put it that way. Sure. Because our food system, as much as we wish to be in ignorance about it, it's extremely broken. I understand the implications of it because I see it every day. We have glyphosate in wheat. We have glyphosate in our staple food in South Africa, corn, maize. It is literally a genetically modified product
food,
that is eaten 3 times a day.
In everything, in things we don't even know it's there. Sugar as well. Wow, sugar is in everything. Your ketchup, your mayonnaises, your this, your that, your soy sauces, your in all the little things, even in granolas, they say, and the thing that grates me is that a lot of the time they'll put a different label. So they'll say, cane sugar, but that's not what it is. It's just normal sugar, but it comes from cane, but it's been processed like 500 times, and they still label it as cane sugar. But it's not actual cane sugar. Actual cane sugar is beneficial for you within reason. But anyway, yes, carry on. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's so many aspects that really one has to, we can't, the way that it works is, firstly, you have to bring the gross body, the physical body, into coherence, because that's the one that we interact with day to day. That's the one that we can access
in with the most.
We can access the quickest, and the quickest way to access that is through food and nutrition. Your cells form from your nutrition every 3 days. You literally are what you eat. Okay, so if that's going to be ultra processed food, then it's just a one-way street
Then
to
you're going to
inflammation.
become ultra processed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we know that inflammation is the root cause of every single chronic disease, dementia, heart disease, diabetes, you name it, inflammation's there. What causes inflammation is what you're eating. It's what you're putting in your mouth every single day. Sure, there can be other factors like stress in it, but we get there. So the way that I work is I start with the physical body. How do we remove the pro-inflammatory foods? How do we look at the toxins in the environment? Okay, including things like mold, cookware, products, that we're using, personal products, personal hygiene products, cleaning products, all of these things really remove the toxic load from the body and then improve the nutritional intake in the body, improve digestion in the body. And when you bring the physical gross material form to a more coherent state, when you bring that has implications on pranamaya kosha, the energy body, and that has implications on the mental body. We know from the research again that what you eat directly affects your enteric nervous system, which directly affects the amount of serotonin is produced in your gut and your brain. And so, of course, your food, what you eat, has an implication on your mental health and vice versa. And so that's how these koshas, they actually interact, these sheaths, the physical, the energetic, the mental, the wisdom body and the bliss body. And so this is a little pathway that really gives us it's very practical. How do
And
we
it's all
access
connected.
this?
Yeah. Because if the
It's
one is
all
suffering, then the other ones start to, if they're not strong enough, then it starts to bring the other ones down. And then you find yourself in states of dis-ease. So everyone says disease, but it's actually states of dis-ease. Natural being ease, unnatural being dis-ease, a state of unnaturalness, if you want to call it that. So
completely.
basically,
And
yeah.
actually what that is really, when you look at it, if we just pay attention to nature for a moment, it unfolds every day, it heals, the seasons change. We are a part of that same system. We are really, if we think that the body is incapable of healing by itself, then we haven't had a direct experience of healing, and that just is simply because we are getting in our own way by the food that we eat and the toxins that we're
And our
ingesting.
habits. Yeah, sure.
And our habits and our thoughts. And so when you start to actually, it's not about more, it's about removing the things that are actually
That's what I
not in
wanted to
alignment.
say. Ayurveda is like it's like simplifying your life, coming back to the basics, and then having setting up good foundations for yourself with solid principles. Like it's not just coming back to the basics and then you start doing the same things again, because that's obviously how you got to where you are if you're in states of disease. So it's taking away all the complications. Like modern life often brings in all these complications because people are just born, then they learn from whoever raises them, and then this is where that generational information comes in. It's like if your whole generation or family line has been doing unhealthy things in some sense or another, then you're just going to continue passing that on to yourself and then to the people that you bring into this world, your children, their children. And so what I'm taking from what you're saying is Ayurveda is seeing all of that, becoming aware of all of that, and then breaking it down into its simplest form and then saying, okay, here's a better way to do this or a more conscious way to do this. Like, for instance, we were talking about cooking. And in my spiritual practice, cooking is a big part of my spiritual practice. I practice Krishna consciousness. And that's what you were saying is exactly the same theology or the same understanding we have around food, is that it's not just what you're cooking, it's also your intention that matters. If your consciousness, I mean, I've had experiences where I've eaten food from people where, for instance, I ate food in a restaurant and I could just feel like, wow, that brought my mood down immediately. The person who was cooking must have been stressed or rushing or, doing this and this and that and that. And the way that they lived their life was intense and they're going through something intense. And I could just feel that drop in my consciousness because I do practice a spiritual path. So my natural state of thinking is different to how I'm feeling right now. And it was literally directly after I ate this food. And then I've had food where I had food cooked for me by a monk who's been practicing celibacy his whole life, and he was for many, many years. And then immediately when I ate it, I felt like this little kid. And I just wanted to run around and laugh because I just felt so joyful all of a sudden. And I immediately started to think, wow, it must have been the food that I just ate. And it's interesting because it all came down to that one aspect is the food. And then you're saying that the first step is accountability in your food. What are you intaking? Are you willing to put in the effort and take responsibility for that? And to even do it yourself to some extent. And yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah.
Very important. I mean, food holds frequency, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why quality is so important. It's the same thing with, whether you're having food which is grown in good soil or food which is grown in really poor soil, and it all holds a specific energetic frequency, and
Yeah.
the rate at which, and that's just science, the rate at which subatomic particles are vibrating. And and of course, that intention holds frequency as well. We know that emotions hold a certain frequency. And so Ayurvedic medicine is very clear about the importance of that in nourishing oneself with food that is what we call very sattvic, food that is harmonious, food that is really kind to oneself and the environment, and food that is balanced, and nourishing and fresh because it holds life
Sure.
force energy.
Okay, that's interesting. So in your experience, what is what is a common lie that you see with people and that they tell themselves about their health? And how would you as an Ayurvedic practitioner help to dispel that illusion or dissolve that illusion?
A common lie. Oh gosh. Okay. So, you know, I really think one of the most important aspects of true healing is really deconstructing these identities that we take on
Mm,
in our life,
mm,
and this narrative of I'm this or I'm that, and actually, according to Ayurveda, it's very clear. You are an Atman, that is a soul. That means soul in Sanskrit, and directly connected to the Paramatman, the supreme soul. And actually, that is the truth of who and what we are. Pure energy, pure light, pure love. Jayatish, okay, prema. So, so this is Jayatish and prema, love and actually light and pure energy, and that is the source of what we are. Okay, that is what I say. People come to see me. That's what walks through the door. Oh wow, there's only one of us sitting here now because I get to be with God every single moment of every single day. And these labels, they can really, 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 they really get in the way of the truth of who and what we are. And so something that I really like to make very clear in my work is my intention about the way that I'm working and who I see sitting in front of me and what that looks like, and how those labels are actually just, yes, fine. Maybe they can be hats that sometimes we put on and off when we have to, and it's necessary to do. But how it's always important to ask, how much are they serving me in my life right now? And really deconstructing some of those belief systems, because in my work I have seen where what I call kind of a medical hex is people will come in with some kind of diagnosis, and they believe that to be their
is
fate
what it is.
forever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They believe that that's who they are. That's who
yeah,
they are. No, they are definitely they. There's nothing else to them other than the fact that, for example, they have ADHD.
yeah.
And so I might spend a bit of time in the session saying, according to Ayurveda, we have different constitutions. And maybe, could it be possible that your constitution might be more of a combination of air and space, and actually that you're a very creative thinker,
Yeah.
and you're a very creative thinker, and maybe you can't fit into the box of
Other people.
conventional
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
in some ways. And so what we have to focus on is grounding that energy, because by grounding that energy, you'll be able to focus more and concentrate more, because it's just like wind. It moves, it's hypermobile. So when we ground that energy, we nourish it well, we give it the right food, we use the right herbs, we use the right mantras, we start to meditate, focus that mind, ground it within the body. I'm curious what happens, you know? And so deconstructing these real belief systems that once we have a diagnosis, it becomes part of our identity is I think really important for us to scrutinize the deeper we go into our healing path.
And I think that's the base of basically all issues on a subtle level, is that we misidentify ourselves with something else. And therefore, we're not who we are. And that misalignment, it creates dis-ease. It's the way that eventually the body tells us you're acting out of alignment with who you actually are. And now imagine someone keeps telling themselves a lie every day, you know, and they keep believing it, and it's going to draw that person further away from their own truth or the truth. And then obviously there's going to be telltale signs along that trajectory that's going to be like, something's wrong, something's different, go back to who you are in some way or another. And then the person would then obviously through the process come back to who they are, which is, as you said, the Atman, the soul. I say the Jiva, but same but different, you know. And that's the root cause of, yeah, sure.
Yes, absolutely. And so I would just like to say that, first of all, our brain has something called confirmation bias, which means it will begin to look for the thing that it believes to be true.
Yeah, sure.
And that's very important. And that's really that's the first step in breaking the cycle, is knowing that that's going to happen. Is if the more you tell yourself that you are something, the more your brain will try to find evidence that you are that. And so it becomes very much a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so what's important then is to start looking for new evidence. And the way that you start looking for new evidence is you start to give yourself different data that's more in alignment. So for example, and that's why I love the example of cooking, because instead of going, okay, you know, this example of, oh my gosh, I have ADHD, I just couldn't, there's no ways I can hardly, I sometimes forget to eat, is going like, okay, well, what happens if you set an alarm that says, I'm going to cook a dinner, or you leave yourself a Post-it note and you make yourself, in your alarm, you make that, you iron out, put it in your calendar that goes, I'm going to do my shopping. And then you actually have very practical steps of how you're going to nourish yourself. Let's see what happens just the first time of going to do the shopping and cooking a meal and sitting down and eating it and taking a deep breath and feeling grounded and trying not to think about other things while you eat, feeling grateful and grounded. Let's see what happens if we start to collect more of that data in the brain. That really throws the brain's confirmation bias off, and it goes, oh, wait, I've got some other data. Maybe there are times where I can feel focused and grounded. Then with the use of specific herbals, you know, there are some amazing, really, really effective herbals.
Ashwagandha is a nice one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, ashwagandha is really, really, really amazing adaptogen,
Yeah.
for kind of like hyperactivity and anxiety. But you know, there are some amazing ones for focus. Rhodiola is one of them. You know, I only would say take it in the morning because it's it can really be hyper. You know, you become very aware, and but it's amazing. You know, that good nutrition, an effective herbal protocol, and just training the mind, training the brain a bit by getting new data and information in.
Reading,
why do I have to wear those
meditation, good exercise, good people,
exactly,
positive environments. I mean, it's easier said than done, but it starts with one of those at least, and then you can build in doing the other things, you know. The mind is like a muscle at the end of the day. If you don't train
totally.
it, then yeah.
And actually it starts with the volition, the willpower, just to know I'm actually not this label. And usually when I say that, there's some light bulb that goes off that says, oh, wait a second, I could actually be more than this thing. And actually this thing could be
these
limiting.
identities. Yeah. But that's also something that takes a long time to really, I mean, you can understand it, but to realize it, it takes a very long time, especially if it's something that you believe. I mean, not even just for this one lifetime, but imagine many, many lifetimes of believing that we are certain things. It's not going to happen just like that. Healing is not always just a quick thing. Oftentimes healing is a very, very long journey, lifetimes even sometimes.
Lifetime, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Can be definitely a lifetime, but what I'm really talking about is that deep knowing of maybe that actually there's a bit more to this, than meets the
Mm.
eye.
Sure.
And what in my experience, I feel is that on some level we all know that.
Yeah,
You
it
see
is.
it in
Yeah, yeah.
children.
True. Yeah,
We
yeah,
all know that on some
yeah.
level there's more to this than meets the eye. And that's why I guess spirituality is really, really taking off, in a more kind of holistic way. Because I mean, I think religion offers that a lot for some, and that's wonderful and beautiful. And it really is about the deeper connection to ourself and to what brings us joy and truth and makes life worth living, and so that's why, I mean, yes, healing is a lifelong journey, but so much of that knowing can just be the awareness of, oh my goodness, there is probably more to this. And most of the time we go, I suspected that. I had a hunch.
I knew
I
that.
had a
I knew that
feeling.
was the issue. Yeah, yeah. I just was telling myself something different.
Well, I
Yeah,
believed something
I
different
believe
because
something
I was
different. Yeah,
told something different and I was told it was the only way. And so I believed
yeah.
it for so long. It's the same thing with, for example, victim consciousness or this victim
Mm,
mindset where everything is happening against me. It's this person's fault, it's this person's fault, it's this person's fault, it's this person's fault. But, okay, well, if I can't take responsibility for my life and
mm,
everything is someone else's fault, then this is an identity issue because actually, if I know who and what I am, then surely I have to start seeing that what is being shown to me is something that there's a deeper, deeper lesson, much
people
deeper
listen.
lesson.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always going to come down to how much responsibility am I willing to take over my own healing and
Mm.
life.
Being accountable. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And healing on the different levels, a physical level, emotional level, mental level, and a spiritual level, because it's all connected at the end of the day. It's not separate things. You'll often
Mm-mm.
find that the deeper you go, the more you realize how integrated everything actually is. It's not just I'm
Mm.
going to heal my body and I'll be fine. Then
Mm.
there's deeper layers to it. It goes way deeper. And so the next question I would like to bring up in relation with that is, what's one belief about healing that you used to hold, but that you don't believe anymore or no longer believe after working with many people, or even just in your own personal journey? What is something that you came into this with and you're like, this is what I believe, seeing as we're talking about beliefs, and now you're just like,
Mm.
I don't believe that anymore.
I used to be a very strict vegan, and then I was vegetarian for a very long time, and I even started a company based on this ideology.
That's how I
And
know you. Yes, it was the Komati Foods. I think you were trying to sell stuff to Komati Foods in Lower Main
yeah,
Road Observation. I think it was that.
it could be that was
Yes.
many years ago. Gosh, I'd say
Yeah,
like
that was a
over
very
15
long time
years
ago.
ago
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
something.
Anyway, yes, yes, yes.
And I know this. I was such an activist in this ideology, and I really believed that it was the only way. And then I got really quite sick. For about 8 months, I just stopped menstruating, and that was a long time. No one could actually figure
Mm,
out what was going on with me.
yeah.
And it continued, and then fortunately, thank God, started to really go deep into my studies with Ayurveda.
Mm,
And I went deeper and deeper and deeper. And actually, what I learned was quite astonishing because I had always so believed that, you know, um, eating any kind of animal products was really not very sattvic and very bad karma, and so many things attached to it, and just something that was never ever ever done within yoga and Ayurveda. And the deeper I got into really seeing people, first myself, so I then became pregnant, and I had to start eating a bit
Something.
yeah, and actually completely conscious animal protein.
Oh.
And then but really, really conscious, like eggs that are really, because that's all part of it, it's the frequency of the food, and that are really from a felt, that are running around in a felt, because they must be happy, they must be joyful, they must, it's part of this whole ecosystem of life. And then when I started to practice, so eventually I healed myself, I've started to practice, and I would also see, people coming to me, very strict within this, also this ideology of an ism, of an I am this ism, and which is exactly where I was, and then I really started to look at the ancient texts, and in the Charak Samhita and Shushrut, there's these ancient Ayurvedic texts which actually use mamsam rasam, which is a meat soup, as a rasayana, which is a healing, rejuvenative food. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought, why did nobody tell me this?
Yeah, because you had to
I
figure
thought,
it out.
why did nobody tell me this? I had to figure it out, and I've been dealing with this guilt all this time, that I'm really this thing of ahimsa and non-violence, but I'm being so violent to my own physical wellness by really cutting these things
Eating
out
the
based
wrong
on this
things.
ideology.
Eating what
And
you
then,
believe was good for you, but maybe not.
yes, but actually my body is telling me something completely different.
Completely different.
And then I look into this beautiful application of using essentially animal or anabolic products, foods, as builders. And oh man, what an aha moment. This light goes on inside my brain. And okay, well, this is what it is. It's not about ideologies. If we're going to cut out any food group, you're going to run into trouble. Plants are catabolic. They are cleansers. They cleanse, they detoxify. Animal foods and proteins are builders. They build the body, and they build tissue, and we need them. And so things like follicular phase, ovulation phase, those are building phase. Things like menstrual phase, luteal phase, and menstrual phase, those are cleansing phase. That's a cleansing phase. So what it really felt like I was being called to do is really make peace with this truth, that actually in these ancient texts, we use this Mamsa Rasayam as an anabolic builder. And of course, it must be within consciousness, within the alignment of what I know to be good, which is that for me, the being should be revered, respected as a life as precious as my own, and really, really, the implication of, okay, well, will you join me on this? Will you embody within me on this ascension process? And I will then do my best in my highest evolution for the highest good of all humanity, our planet, and our collective consciousness. So oh wow, okay, this was such a, oh my goodness, because suddenly I'm going from this strict vegan to, hey, maybe I can use Mamsa Rasayam, this very therapeutic use of conscious regenerative animal products as medicine. And actually that can be this balanced place that can be of service to me and how I work within the collective. And so this has been really quite eye-opening, because I see it all the time. I've got lots of vegan clients. They walk in here refusing. They refuse. And so many of the time they've had lots of miscarriages, so it's common where the body just can't hold the baby, because pregnancy is an anabolic. You can see the body building. The body is literally going through an anabolic process. The body needs proteins, you know, and Ayurvedically, it would need dairy, it would need, you know, good, robust proteins, good, robust, you know, so not, so, of course, yes, some catabolic detoxifying plants, because that's fiber and that's really, really important, but we cannot ignore, because of this ideology, that actually this was completely left out. And in fact, it actually wasn't. And this was shocking to me, because I realized that actually maybe this is this clear distinguishable between kind of yoga and Ayurveda. And once you're on this yogic path where, you know, you are moving towards sattva, moving toward more harmonious mind and state of being and meditation, because yes, you know, meat and animal products are actually what's called rajasic, you know, they
Switch your
rajasic
brain
is,
into a different, into a different frequency.
yeah, into a different
Yeah.
frequency and state, but again, used for anabolic building. So can cause your brain, like almost rajas is like movement, you know. So sattva is stillness, harmoniousness, like a lake with life underneath, and rajas is like a river flowing. So you don't, when you're in meditation, you don't want to be this flowing river. You want to be more like the lake, okay? And too much meat will lead you to tamas, which is inertia. That's the stagnant water which doesn't have any life in it. So that is also, no, we never use rajas to go to tamas. We always use rajas to go to sattva. But there is a time in a woman's body of reproductive age where she needs more anabolic nutrients. And for me as an Ayurvedic practitioner, this was like a light bulb moment, which was very seldom talked about in any kind of, you know, studies that I did, because it's just, you know, sattva, you know, vegetarian is the main focus. But and when I learned, actually, within these ancient texts, no, we see that this is actually used very medicinally. Lots of spices used for things like emaciation, weakness, miscarriage, pregnancy, etc. And that was quite surprising to me. And so I work with people who are really struggling with, you know, pregnancy, miscarriage, digestion, particularly women who have gone too far on the catabolic route and need a bit more anabolic builders.
But okay, so I mean, I'm from a spiritual practice where meat is a no-go. So Krishna
Yes,
consciousness,
I
we
know.
don't eat meat, and it's just a part of the belief of karma. So you take a life, then you are now entwined in karma, which is going to bind you here in this world. And so the thought process as you were speaking is that there are other forms of protein that you can take. I mean, you're saying one thing that we can get it from, you know, animals and so on and so forth. And I'm saying that there are other ways you can also get protein. But you just have to make sure that you get that protein to sustain or to help yourself to be healthy. I mean, I do jiu-jitsu, I go to gym, I work a full-time job, you know, all these types of things. I like to run. I'm a very active person. I have a lot of vata in me, and I'm very active. And I don't eat meat, and I feel fine. You know, yes, I get tired, obviously, because I do a lot of stuff, but that's my own choice at the end of the day. But you know, I make sure that I get in the protein that I need from responsible sources. So I do eat tofu, things like chickpeas, dals, beans, and I do eat some processed soy products. But my wife and I were actually talking about it last night, or actually in the early hours of this morning, that if we just bought more of the healthier options, the less processed soy products and the tofus and stuff like that, then we could cut out the processed things, you know, which is something I think we're going to move towards in the near future, because it's just better for us in the long run. And so,
Yes.
so I agree with what you're
Look,
saying, but I also am just adding in that, you know, if you're uncomfortable with eating meat, that's fine. I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't think I ever want to do that again. I spent a lot of my time doing that when I was younger, and just through my spiritual practice, I see that all life is sacred. So I'm not going to go take a life for my own sustenance, but that's my personal beliefs. And
yes.
yeah, so I have found other ways to get what I need in healthy ways, you know. So yeah.
Yes. And it's not actually the I agree with you, but it's not just the protein. So you will need some form of supplementation
Yeah,
when it
sure.
comes
Yeah.
to very complex B vitamins that just are not available from plant sources abundantly. And so, especially, and I would venture to say, if you are of reproductive age, going through a hormonal cycle every month, that your needs would be quite different. And so I just think that, we have to really be extremely responsible, particularly around areas of pregnancy, childbirth, breastfeeding, postpartum, where really denser, heavier foods, more anabolic foods are really encouraged. In Ayurveda, it's really dairy. It's used quite generously.
Ghee, yogurt,
And
milk, butter.
dairy, yogurt, milk, cheeses, those kinds of things, but more kind of cottage cheeses, because of their building capacity. Ghee is a big
Ghee.
one,
Yeah. It's got a lot of
Ghee
life
is a big
force. Ojas is what they say. Yeah.
very difficult. It's very difficult, to really heal the gut. If you're looking at something like intestinal wall permeability, which is where the tight junctions of the gut start to move apart and food starts to leak through there, also known as leaky gut. All of those amino acids, you find them in abundance in something like bone broth. And ghee has congelinic acid, which also heals that intestinal wall. It soothes that inflammation. Now, it becomes very hard to get if you're having no dairy and will also
Not
not take in any
supplementing.
bone broth.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is it's actually very therapeutic, and which is the way that it's used and suggested to be used within the ancient texts, is as a very therapeutic thing, which is, okay, I'm consciously this is a building process. It's not a maintenance process, which is a little bit different, which is what you're talking about. You're talking about day-to-day life exercise. Sounds like you do have a little bit of fatigue, so I would check those B levels.
Yeah.
And maybe even iron, and just really see, okay, well, there's this like rejuvenation process sometimes that is very, very necessary, especially in instances of miscarriage and emaciation, leaky gut, adrenal fatigue, all of these, where the myelin sheaths of the nervous system really need those robust builders because they deteriorate from overstimulation. So that's been a very interesting journey for me. And I'd say I'm 98% plant-based. But I know my body well enough that if I really, really get that sense from my body, I've got to eat eggs. And, that I used to be in a position where I would just completely ignore that. But in my work, most probably the most valuable lesson I have learned is to stop a complete identification with an ideology and to allow the body to tell us really the truth of what it is we need. And of course, if the body is saying to you, go and eat like a donut and some, high processed foods, it's maybe not there yet where you can, you're really going to have to do some work in the growth body and the microbiome. But if the body is really saying like, oh my gosh, an egg sounds like an amazing thing, we know that eggs have got some of the most is one of the most nutrient dense food on the planet. So finding a way that is coherent and of a higher frequency to be able to do that is really, really the most important thing, because for example, eggs, you get eggs, which is the same food. One is grain fed with glyphosate and corn, and the animals are treated horrifically, and that food is going to cause inflammation. And you have an egg, which is completely free, running in a field, collecting and eating worms, and that food is going to lower inflammation.
Yeah, so
we
like what you're
see
saying,
that
it's not just the food itself, it's the consciousness behind it, basically, how it was grown, where it was grown.
That's the most
All of
important
that,
thing.
it goes into whatever is coming out of or whatever you're going to intake. So whatever dish you're eating, everything that went into the process of making that dish is going to go in here, and either stimulate and
The whole system.
expand or depreciate the system. So moving on, and I think just closing off with this last question, sorry to cut it short there a little bit, but if someone listening today feels stuck, if either emotionally, physically, or spiritually, what is the first non-negotiable step that they should take before doing anything else?
The feeling of stuckness is again this inertia, this tamasic space. Tamas is really like a water which is stagnant and doesn't have any life force in it. And according to Ayurveda, you can't go from tamas through to sattva or harmony. You can't expect to go like, okay, I'm feeling stuck and I'm just going to meditate. No, it doesn't work. You can't. So the most, the pathway is actually rajas. And so something which I see as one of the most effective ways to really get going and to springboard and just do something is walking in nature. Walking, just even walking, but movement, biomechanics. It's really, there's so much that go. And again, then you're using rajas to sattva. You're using movement, you're burning that energy, you're releasing those endorphins, you're moving from a state, often of cortisol and depletion and so you're moving from the state you're changing states through movement, and movement can be very, very powerful. Whether it's 17 minutes of yoga has been shown to completely stop cortisol production, and
even a 5-minute walk. Yeah.
5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk. I think exercise is completely, it's absolutely fundamental. Just movement, I really have seen, the difference. You can see the difference in the biomechanics of someone kind of doing this and who's really not moving the body, and what that message is being communicated to the nervous system, and the psychoneuroimmunology, which is the way that the mind is impacting the nervous system, is impacting the immune system. So this biomechanics was someone who's moving and someone who's, open in this way and is able to really speak with body language. And so the way that we, become familiar with our body's biomechanics is by moving, breathing with movement. And so I just think, take yourself to a yoga class, go for a walk. It's really going to help you. Exercise is really a panacea. It is really a panacea for almost every single disease that we now see, because it lowers inflammation and it improves metabolic health. So I would start there. And then the second thing I would say is, if meditation sounds like too far of a stretch, just go outside in the morning, get some sun into the retina, notice all of creation around you and us, that we are so blessed and fortunate to experience this beautiful world, and actually appreciate it, and begin to have a conversation with your higher self and say, for me, it's Father, Mother, God, open my heart so that I can hear you in love and see you in love in all of creation and all of the beauty that surrounds me. And then I begin with a prayer, and find your way of prayer. And really, the opposite of that, it's mind, body, spirit. So the body part would be run, nourish yourself. The mind and spirit part would be really anchor yourself in the divine, because that is who and what we are. We are divinity embodied, and it's our birthright to walk this planet in that way, and let our lives be a living prayer. And that is with every single decision that we make. It's within every single thought that we have. And it sounds like a lot of pressure, but it actually just starts with an intention to do it. And so it's nice to begin the day where we walk outside, we connect with the 5 elements of ether, air, fire, through the sun, water and earth and say, I am connected with all of life. And my intention is to really invite more harmoniousness into my life. And so intention is so powerful. And so I would say movement, intention, or prayer, and breath. Just breathe into the belly, breathe into the diaphragm, because that is the quickest way to switch your nervous system.
I like it. So if people want to find your channel and want to find you and connect with you, please do let them know. I know you have an Instagram profile, and I saw you just sent me your website. So I'll put the links to those down below. And is there anywhere else they can find you, YouTube or anything like that, or?
For now, just Instagram and
Okay.
our website. I'm focusing quite a lot on my sessions one-on-one, which
Sure.
are nice and booked, and
Sure.
yeah, and I guess and really seeing really some beautiful transformational shifts. And so those are the only places where you can find me for now. I haven't
That's great.
given too much energy into YouTubing and podcasting, simply because I'm actually just focusing on the practice. And so I would say if any of this sounds like it could be useful to you, then definitely reach out to me. Yeah, I'm really very grateful to say that Ayurveda works. It really works, and it's worked for 5,000 years.
Yeah, sure.
And I feel incredibly blessed to be holding this this torch to light the way for many others. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate all the information that you've shared. We do have our differences in some things, but that's okay. That's what makes life beautiful. I do wish you well. And yes, so if anybody
Thanks.
wants to find Talesia anywhere, again, I'll put the links down below to her Instagram and her website, and you can connect with her if you feel like that's what you really want to do. Also, you can support this podcast. Or you can support my channel through all the things I do. I do Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all of those beautiful things. And you can support the podcast. There's a link down below. You can, it's called Buy Me a Pizza. You can drop a donation if you want to. It's completely up to you if you like what's going on here. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Talesia for gracing this podcast with your presence. I do hope that your practice goes really well. It seems like you're doing the right thing with the right intention, and that's what matters at the end of the day, you know? So yeah, I pray that more people come to you for healing and help, and I pray that your healing and your personal journey also expands and goes deeper as you practice, because that's what we're going to share with others, is the depth of our own journey, especially as healers. So in whatever form. So yes, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Talesia,
Thank
again.
you. Thank you
And
so much.
yes, see you guys on the next episode.